All right, guys, welcome to another episode on the podcast. Got myself, Brian Gold, my boy Squints, and my good friend Spencer from Still Life, the CEO. Want to explain to people what the hell Still Life is and stillness is?
Yeah.
And then a little background on you.
Totally.
Maybe a background on you, and then we'll get into Still Life. What do you think?
However you want to start.
Let's start with Still Life.
Still Life,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we named it Still Life, kind of two pieces. One is everything that we do has a component of stillness, which I'll get into soon. The reason why we named Still Life is really we try to make it a way of life. It's kind of like it's a movement, but everyone can make it their own. And so we kind of have different aspects. We started officially about 3 years ago. The first thing that we lean in on is stillness, which is just a state of mind with no perception of past and no perception of future. So we can definitely break that down, but a lot of different ways to get there. Some people like running. I know we talked about
racing, doing dumb
racing.
stuff.
Yeah, you're just in that moment. Time slows. Everything else kind of stops. You're just extremely present in whatever activity that you're doing. So we really lean into that. We have our own potent tools, techniques that we ultimately do with people, workshops, digitally, to try to access that state and train that ability to create that awareness.
Do you find with like wearable devices like Apple Watches, iPhones, everybody's no longer in the state of being present in the moment, and that's where you guys really come into play?
Yeah, I think now more than ever. I mean, it's distraction, it's the news, it's the media, environmental noise, but I think now more than ever it's the internal noise. Constant distraction that's constantly being pulled. Social media being one of the biggest ones. If you're working, swiping. I mean, the attention span is getting shortened and shortened.
Can you see this? I see the stats on YouTube sometimes, and sometimes people like click for 5 seconds. I'm like, wow, people's attention spans really shrunk down to nothing.
It's comparable to a goldfish. I saw one stat about that.
Wow.
Which is pretty wild. I think there's just like 6-7 seconds that they can be able to focus on something.
Which is not a good place for humans to be operating from.
No, especially.
That sounds like a train wreck.
Yeah, if you're a professional trying to do deep work, communicating with someone.
Yeah. The crazy part was you had me come to that intro a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
And you paired me up with some dude I met 5 seconds before.
Yep.
And you made me stare at him for 15 minutes without saying one word.
Right.
That was really fucking awkward. Like there was nothing to interject.
Sure,
like
difficult as well.
Dude,
just because we're so
and he's
not
like
used to this one-on-one.
And he's like stare at his left eye, right eye, one of the eyes.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't know this dude, and I'm gonna fucking stare at his face for 15 minutes. And like you noticed just being there and staring at someone, you felt their energy and you felt what they were thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a really weird experience of no words were said, but I had a deeper conversation with this dude than someone that actually spent 2 minutes talking to me saying, hi, I'm blah, 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 and then going on.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Silence is a very powerful thing. And so that's one of the tools that we always kind of start with is like an introduction. One, it is awkward.
Yeah.
On purpose, too.
On purpose. And it's like, I like it to start with that always is because you see how noisy. Room's pretty silent. We do a kind of a guided meditation throughout it with music and everything that's being led.
And I noticed the tones were changing throughout.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a constant like river noise or whatever it might be. Like you guys intentionally switched the vibe of it.
Yep.
To kind of change the thought process through it.
Exactly. And so like what's kind of really interesting is you see that spike of, oh my God, are they looking at me? Are they judging me? What's that person thinking? What do I look like? And it's just popping everywhere and you have no control over it. But if you just sit with it, on the other edge of that is magic. Mm-hmm. It's that real presence when you're sitting down with an absolute stranger and you're able to deeply connect. I mean, we've been doing this a lot, hundreds of them, and what happens at almost every single session is like people are like, that was like drugs without taking drugs. It can be psychedelic, but it's people standing up and hugging, sharing tears, exchanging numbers.
Those girls were sharing tears, like the two in the front row, and I was like, that was just because you'd be the same way. Like my armor was still up, but like you could see those girls just let everything down and like went into it open-hearted, like no hold back.
Yeah,
and they were tearing, like they felt each other's pain from childhood, and I was like, it's not bullshit, but like you tell a random person that's not sitting there, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, you're fucking with me at this point.
Right.
Yeah. We've lost a lot of the we've lost a lot of our our instinct and our gut feeling and these things that naturally we used to have, these abilities that have made humans, evolve into what we are today, or survive on Earth and these through the harder times, through things based off of our instincts, right? Our natural abilities, and
got lost
with the very convoluted. I mean, information is everywhere. We're constantly bombarded by it, and it's hard enough to be with your own thoughts, let alone to include
somebody else's.
Exactly.
Right.
Like, I'm sure Jen will talk to you, and you'll be just doing something on your phone, and she'll be like, Chauncey.
It's hard. I mean, I have 4 kids.
Yeah.
I have
You're pulled
multiple different businesses and people expecting things from me, and then just household
day-to-day stuff.
We don't have life used to be a lot simpler.
Absolutely.
We come from a time and I'll use America for this. A man could work, support a family, one job. A wife could stay at home, raise kids, raise a family, and they still had time to vacation and to spend time with each other and to do family dinners, church, all of these activities, and have this presence,
Yep.
And it was pretty cut and dry. There was no. I'm not bombarded by all of these other thoughts or things outside of reading a newspaper or whatever was on the television at the time. It was a pretty
simpler times.
This is it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's evolved so fast in the last 10 years that we've gone from a little bit of tech to
it's involved
completely
in everything.
Yeah, there's nothing that doesn't involve this. And you can't operate a business or do anything without it at this point.
Yeah.
So finding a moment to
really be in the moment and just, and you ride
where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, as you guys were speaking of that, my right away, I'm like, well, that's riding a bike, right? That's riding your motorcycle, because you have to be 100% aware. Or
totally. Extreme sports is a perfect example.
Yeah, because you're in flow state. If you're not there in the moment,
you die.
You're dead, dude.
Right. One little thing, you're up, sliding out.
It's not a good place to operate.
Yeah.
From. I mean, things can go wrong when you're in the moment.
Right.
But when you're out of the moment, you're really in bad shape, right?
Totally.
But that peacefulness, I feel so tired after I go for a ride, because you're so locked in and zoned in on everything.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. And I mean, you're throwing a bike around too, but I think it's more mentally that
you're mentally fried by the end of it.
Because you're so
focused, 110%, no distractions.
Yeah.
Exactly. That there's nothing else going on, but it's very peaceful in that moment too.
So peaceful.
Right?
Yeah.
You get off and you're I'm
this is wild that I just went through that.
I just stopped I stopped the hamster wheel for a second, right?
Right.
Because that's where we're all at, right? Just completely.
Constantly.
Some people are better at controlling it than others, but some people can operate in it and succeed. But even the ones that can, it's easy to get.
It's easy to get lost,
whipped and lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mental fatigue is really fascinating. When I really started getting into this, I always used to think meditation, cross-legged, zen, close your eyes, like a mini nap. But when you really start getting into the different ways to create different states of mind, just depending on what you got to go do, it can be super fatiguing.
Oh yeah.
You're actually really working, because it's like a muscle, and people think it's I just am gonna do it in this bliss state and I'm gonna be able to zen out for an hour, but you're actually looking for that failure. It's like training in the gym. You're looking for that failure and I caught it. Can I bring it back? And so you're constantly just exercising that muscle of awareness, and then it'll start to build. I mean, I remember 2 seconds, if I was able to just have zero thoughts for 2 seconds, I was got it. All right, how do I get 5 seconds? It kind of becomes that almost addicting nature.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can get definitely fatigued. After our workshops, everyone kind of feels a different outcome from it, because it is an experience. It is semi an emotional, it's a feeling, but after, some people are I can't wait to work, I can't wait to fall asleep tonight. Everyone has a different experience through it.
Yeah, and everyone in the room that day pretty much had a different experience.
Yeah,
it was all positive, but it was all different.
Totally. And every single time you do it, it's completely unique.
How did this come into your life? How did you find this way of life, and how did it evolve into a business and a program?
Totally. So I would go back to 2013. I was playing football at UCLA. I was a walk-on. I was going into my second year. I was getting ready to play some special teams, had a good opportunity to go on scholarship. And it was my childhood dream. I went to a pretty intense boarding school, IMG Academy. And I was just about to enter through this door of get my childhood dream, get some playing time at a top tier school. And it was just like, something wasn't sitting right in my gut that this is the path for me.
Wow.
And so I leveraged anyone I possibly could in my network, and I was asking for advice. And what I really missed was, what do I want? I think I definitely overlooked that. I was looking external. I got referred to now one of the co-founders, Jim George, who leads all these workshops, head of content. Anyways, I went to his private practice. He has a one-on-one private practice. And he asked me 2 questions as soon as I arrived. Sat down in his office. I was like, hey, I'm here, student, athlete. I want to figure out what I should do about football. Something's not sitting right. And he just goes, great, we'll come back to that, but I'm going to ask you 2 questions. I start everyone there, and I think it's the most important thing to start. You don't need an answer today. Who are you really, and what do you love? And I was like, what do you mean, who am I really? I'm a football player, I'm at UCLA, I'm from this town, about like the resume. Yeah. And he's like, no, who are you really underneath all of that?
Yeah.
Like, put that to sign. Who's like the real Spencer? And I was like, I have no idea. What do I love? Like, I thought I loved football, but obviously I'm thinking about quitting. And so he's like, great, we'll come back to that. Do you want to get still? And I was like, what is stillness? And he gave me the definition. He's like, you've already probably been still when you've been playing. Like, this isn't a foreign thing. Like, you've been there, but like, do you want to actively, consciously, volitionally do that? And I was like, yeah, I'm open to that, sure. So we did a kind of a 10-minute stillness guided meditation together. And the only way I like love to explain it is like, you have your desktop, and you're looking at your desktop, and you have like Windows, Microsoft, some folders, and all of those are your ideas that are constantly going on, that are popping up. And it was like clicking and dragging and putting it in the recycle bin, and it was just a blank screen. And came back out of that and quit football like within a few weeks later.
Wow.
Super emotional, and it just like hit me like that. It's like, oh my God, like I've been operating under this 12-year-old dream, and I've never updated the software. Okay, like now I have a, like kind of a choice to do this, like, and then we started working together for almost weekly, and it went from I was under operating another belief. I was a stupid athlete. I wasn't a student. I'm at this pretty competitive school that, quite frankly, without sports, I wouldn't have any chance or shot to be in. D student, and I started getting straight A's, and he just started breaking things down with me using stillness first, and would teach me how to study. And it would just sound so stupid, but it's so simple. He's like, I was in this econ class, failed it, had to retake it. I was like, Jim, I really need help. How do I use stillness to pass this class? And he was like, okay, let's just break this down. Do you have anxiety about the class? I was like, absolutely. He's like, good. That's probably a note that your goal or what you're trying to do is too big of a step. And he's like, do you have anxiety about one chapter? I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, this is dense, hard stuff. And he's like, okay, let's break it down. What about a paragraph? Do you have any anxiety about getting this paragraph and knowing that? I was like, not at all. That's easy. Like 4 sentences, I can handle that. And he's like, great, let's really optimize this now. When you study, get still before. Stop all the distractions. So when you come back, you know exactly what you need to do. You have one paragraph. That's all you're going to study on. Quit the distraction. That's the only thing you're focusing on. Do that. So we'd come up with like kind of this game plan of how to study, and you just start breaking these things down. You would have a reward system in there. I loved push-ups, and my reward system would be my favorite song. So I'd have no distractions, get through a couple pages, listen to my favorite song, or do some push-ups. And then at the end of it, we time it to like 90 minutes, 2 hours, and he's like, you got to rest and recover, especially like midterms, intense kind of like brain work. And so he would teach me a couple stillness meditations of essentially like mini micro naps. Mm-hmm. I think it was Benjamin Franklin or Albert Einstein who was like famous for this. He would hold a silver spoon after trying to do like some crazy problem and have a glass plate, and would be, after doing a couple hours of work, he would fall asleep, and he'd wake up to the spoon dropping, hitting the plate, and it'd wake him back up. It's like that micro rest recovery, and go back to work. Wow. So that's one example of how I kind of started working with Jim, and we just built the relationships. And he's the only person, Now there's a couple people that is, I think his only reason why he is here is to help people. Hasn't taken vacation in 40 plus years, works 365. All he does is to help stupid people like me, you know, try to optimize and figure out what they want to do in life.
You found a path.
And get on the path. And whatever the path is to you uniquely.
I love that question to start with.
Yeah.
It brings me back to like Jim Carrey, like asking somebody who they are.
Right.
And then, no, not the character you play. Not me, Jim Carrey. The
exactly.
Actor. Like, who are you? Like, who am I? Who is, you know, I come from, obviously I started acting very young at 6. It wasn't something that I mean, you're 6 years old, you don't make decisions for yourself. It was something that came into my life.
Right.
And that I was successful at and became a business very fast that we chased to California from across the country to, you know, it changed my life path completely.
Right.
But at a, you know, around your age when you're at UCLA, figuring out if this is, you know, I'm finally here, is this my path?
Right.
I felt the same way. I don't know that I chose this for myself.
Totally.
Chauncey the actor is this person that they've told
they chose
me
for you
to be, right?
Right.
And obviously, you know, I played the role well.
Right.
But it was a role in itself, right?
Yeah. Definitely served a purpose.
And then you start to think, hey, maybe this isn't my want or my love or my passion, you know?
Right.
It's man, it's sharp to be right away your guard is dropped and you're thinking along the lines of like, what is my, because we don't have a lot of time to think of, you know.
Well, no, like you walk up to a random person and they're like, well, who are you and what do you do?
Right.
You know, I usually say business guy or, you know, my old profession.
It's hard to get in the, I mean, it's hard for anybody to tell you what they actually want.
Right.
We can tell you what we don't want.
Well, and it's vulnerable.
We can tell you what we don't want.
Yeah.
I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want that. What do you want?
Right.
Because we think backwards, right? We think from a negative space of protecting ourselves automatically, right?
Yep.
I mean, this is where my mind is going with this train of thought, is that we come from a place where we think about what we don't want instead of what we want, right?
Right.
We have to teach ourselves how to focus on actual goals and like what we do want to see to come into life. So having tools to be in the moment where this is the only present that you can, and to access source and to actually guide you to the direction that you feel is right, you know.
Yeah.
Without needing your motorcycle or just that walk, just being able to.
Oh man, that's
anytime, any place. Don't sweat. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Tell us about the facility.
Yeah.
And you know what you guys have planned
for this year
for the population, you know, and how
totally.
you can help, you know.
Yeah. So I'll take like a real quick step back. So we worked together for 6 years. My other co-founder, Henry Mitchell, is my best friend in school. Both of them are a lot more smart than me. But we founded the facility as organically probably as possible. We never thought it was going to be a business, but I was working in banking in San Francisco. Henry was at Washington and St. Louis, WashU, studying meditation at the Healthy Mind Lab. And we would fly back to LA when we missed the city and our friends, but we wanted to get still with Jim. And we're like, what would happen if we did this with a group of people? So we'd rent an Airbnb and we would just hit up anyone we knew. Who's like, hey, come to this 2-hour session. They're like, what is this? It's like, it's stillness. It's like, what is stillness,
just
you
show
weirdo?
up and be here.
I was like, just show up. Promise. Like, I got you. And everyone would come in kind of like so curious. Like, why am I here? Spencer, like, have you lost your mind?
Some
like,
new age, it's some new age stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard for people to wrap their head around.
Yeah, this is 2017, 18.
Yeah.
And people were just like, oh my God, like this is not how I define meditation. Like this is, wow. So we did that for a little while. So we ultimately opened up a facility on Abbot Kinney in Venice, California. Converted the old Baptist church there. Snapchat had it literally for a parking lot. Pretty crazy.
Really?
Yeah, literally when they're renting up everything.
Because the parking lot's not that big.
It's not that big, but they had like 8 other buildings, no parking, so they literally just used valet there for parking. Okay. So empty shell.
Stuffed it.
Yeah. We built it out. Ceilings are like projection screens. I was telling you, you got to see it. It's like almost it's the real deal. So we try to create that set and setting middle of Venice, but when you walk in, it's like, whew. Like,
well, plus, like, when the projectors go on, you're not in Venice. You're somewhere else.
You're somewhere else.
I can't tell you where that somewhere else is, but you're not where you think you are.
Right. So we did that on purpose. Henry literally lived in there, like literally slept in there when we were building out for like 5 months. God love him. And so
That's
we built
what it
out,
takes.
commitment. We built out the facility. The original idea was we're going to take 6 high growth companies, be an extension of their executive team, work with them like super close, getting ready for like an IPO or a big kind of event. And then on the side, we wanted a 100-person kind of community just to do pop-ups with, because we love the community vibe. We had 2 of our starting events. We had Omaze's executive team in there the day that the NBA shut down with COVID.
Wow.
And we're like, wow, this is unique timing. I thought we were ready to go. And COVID happened. We launched an app. Love that as another kind of like pillar of what we do, software. And the last year we just tested. We're like, COVID's coming out. What do we want to do? And so what we're doing now is essentially a 6-month transformational program with half-day monthly workshops, and then we weave other kind of modalities, yoga, breathwork, sound healing, ice baths, part of that on a weekly basis. And so we kind of like combine everything that we've learned, what Jim's been doing the last 4 decades plus. Stillness is kind of like different tools and techniques of just conditioning this. The second aspect is I call just modular based learning, which is like, how do I actually integrate this? So we lean hard into values and behavior, communication and relationships. And we do it, we got about 90 people part of it in 4 separate cohorts. And then we have the space and facility. But the big thing that we learned last year is community. Like people, the right type of people together doing this work that actually want to be there, not just be like, oh, I'm at this cool, sick place, is a huge accelerant to growth.
Like everybody that was there the other night wanted to be there.
Yeah, they wanted to be there. It's all word of mouth only. Anyone who participates basically has to sit down, not too formally with myself or any of the founders, for at least an hour. And it's just a wide range of people, age, industry, stage, money, all of it is across the board. And we're just putting them in this melting pot, and it's going to be a really cool experiment to kind of see how it goes. And we did it over 6 months. I've done a lot of retreats. It's really potent, but then you kind of leave that experience and it's kind of like, how do I remember that dream again? And it's kind of fading because we are so based on habits and patterns. And so we're kind of doing this over the long term, and hopefully it'll serve people for decades to come. And we're just trying to build out a very strong foundation that people can make it their own. And we'll see how it goes.
I think it's good for what a building block for not only that community, but just in general for,
just for life.
Yeah,
because you and I talk about like, just we carry a lot of stress from everything, and it's like, how do you disconnect? You got 4 kids. I got a 1.5-year-old. Like, us riding motorcycles isn't the best idea.
No,
you're right.
I mean, it just, man, we're so. It's the easiest and hardest time to be alive in history, right?
Yep.
All at once, right?
All at the same time.
We have all of the, we're not worried about survival in the same sense.
Right.
In first world countries, obviously, but we are. Suicide rates and things will tell you that we're more mentally disturbed and troubled than ever before, right? Life is far from simple anymore.
There's so many dichotomies going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of options.
Never been more connected, access to everyone, and on the other side of it, it's like isolation, suicide, depression rates are going like this.
Even though we're connected.
Yeah, something's broken.
Yeah.
And we're not connected to source anymore, even though we're connected to
everything.
Right.
We're connected, but we're very disconnected all at the same time.
Yeah. I think the question is, what are we connected to?
Yes. Because we're all connected to our own little portal, right?
Right.
Into our own little world.
Yeah.
We have I think we're losing perception of shared reality.
Yep.
And shared space, and understanding that outside of here, which we can totally be in 24 hours a day pretty much now.
Right.
We don't have this human connection anymore.
Right.
And our children are
unfortunately,
they don't have the, I come from the 80s and 90s and from you know, real life before tech, basically, where you only had social skills with one another, you know?
Right.
Bicycle and you go ride a bike and meet some kids.
They're not going to grow up in that world. I mean, my baby daughter is 5 months old and has access to YouTube and you know, it starts there, but they understand technology very fast, and by the time they're 3 or 4, they have access to
literally the world.
Yeah, I mean, there is no childhood fantasy anymore because you have the answer to everything, right?
Right.
So unless we completely lock them out of that, you know?
Especially because the algorithms are so potent.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and they put you in these kind of like vacuums, and you're thinking, this is my world. I mean, look at like the elections. It's
this is the perfect
you look at
example.
anyone's TikTok or Instagram,
Watching Social Dilemma. It's
it's so crazy.
And it's interesting because you have all these niche like personalities and followings now.
Right.
That like it's easy to think that everybody is aware of what you have going on and everything else. And you know, there's so many people that I meet that have a huge following that I knew nothing about, right?
Right.
And in their world, they're
a big deal.
They're a god or whatever. I mean,
like
you know what I mean?
Like the guy we met the other day that teaches you shit you didn't know. I didn't know he existed.
No, but he has a huge following, millions and millions of followers. Sid, right? Yeah. And he tried. You know, he's a personality. He tried for years to get that following.
Almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's interesting that, like you said, so connected, so disconnected.
Yeah.
And so connected to our own. With the elections, I saw right away. I said, "Oh, well, you're not wrong, and you're not wrong.
Right.
You're being fed
that
what you want, and you're being fed what you want.
Totally.
And the algorithm doesn't care because all it cares about is this.
Totally.
And that you keep clicking and you keep watching and you keep clicking. It's actually feeding negative information because that fuels the algorithm better.
Totally.
Right? It's not dependent on right or wrong or real journalism, right?
Right.
Real journalism is like I have to fact check because my whole career is based on this, and if I throw somebody under the bus, you know, that's somebody's life, and my life will be directly affected by that.
Right.
It doesn't matter anymore. We have shock value, like you said. The attention of a goldfish. So nobody remembers that, like...
Oh, yeah. And I think...
There's no redactment. There's no nothing. It's just post.
And Spencer's whole program, like, each class is, what, 4 hours-ish?
4 hours-ish, yeah.
You know, you get a little break here and there, but for people to disconnect just from their phones...
How hard is that to... Do you find that it's... even with the tone that you set for the program, do you find people struggle in focusing for those periods of time?
I think it's case by case, but for the most part, no, because it goes back to like the filtration process. Like if someone doesn't want to be there, most of these people have had some type of understanding of what we do. They've come to an introduction. So that filtration on that funnel.
And then the hour with you kind of gets rid of them.
Yeah, it's like, this is literally what we're doing. And like, I'm not trying to sell or pitch you anything. It's like, here it is. We do a 6-month guarantee. It's like, listen, at any point, if you don't sing with this, here's the money back.
And get out of here.
Yeah, like with
we
love.
Don't want you involved.
With love. Yeah. Like, this isn't for everyone, for sure. And it's like, and it just might not be the right time or whatever it may be.
It's not a money thing. It's you want people to truly enjoy it.
Yeah.
And really get a benefit out of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I started it and like primarily I funded it. It's like, this has been the single greatest gift that I've ever been given is every morning I can turn off this freaking crazy monkey. And just, it's like,
this
so
person
peaceful.
in our head that is constantly.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm not enough. I need more. Like, all these things. It's like, can I just press pause just for a little bit?
Just for 1 second.
Yeah, just, I'll come back to it, but give me some type of...
Have you ever read The Surrender Experiment?
It's on the list. It's top of the list.
That's great.
So many friends that I've talked to are like, you need to do that.
It's right along with the whole monkey line. Is that, like, this guy acknowledged that there was a protagonist
right
in his head, and that, you know, he decided that he was just going to defy this negative personality that kept telling him no or freaking out every time somebody asked him to do something. And his life had a crazy life path due to the fact that he just, whenever somebody asked him to do something that he didn't want to do, he just said yes.
He just did it. Jim Carrey movie, remember? He can't say no.
That's where it comes from. It's like the yes man, yes. Yeah. It's totally a symbolage for, I mean, I'm sure Jim and his writing and producing partner wrote that film based off of The Surrender Experiment because it's obvious that that's what it is. It's
right.
surrendering ourselves to
to this bigger thing,
not
that
controlling
right.
everything, you know,
is
the, you know, really the key to our personal growth, you know?
Right. I think a lot of times we are our own worst enemies.
Like, that's the only competition for me as well, is like staying out of my own way and blocking the blessings. There's a million words for it in any type of way of life you can say it, but yeah, I mean, I think we block our own blessings and get in our way quite a bit, you know?
Totally.
From our own, you know, childhood trauma or life traumas and things that we've been through. I'm sure everybody's, you know.
Or passed down.
Transgressed, you know. Yeah, Surrender Experiment. Definitely, I would put that on your list.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I don't even know what you're talking about, but I'll put it on my list.
It's a great book, yeah. Okay. Even if you audio, it's
I like to like highlight my books.
Read it. It's a really good read, and it's well written. It's an easy read too.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I look for.
It's been recommended like 10 times. So it's one of those signs where it's like, okay, time to get it on.
Let me tell you how this book came into my life, and this is how I know that things are meant to be. So there was this. I ran a dispensary called Green Dragon in North Hollywood that was very, very, very busy during the pre-ICO, like Prop 215 days.
Got it.
They're still in existence, huge business now, but this was a very popular community, you know, cannabis shop. Yeah, exactly. And I was like the manager of the business entirety, right? So, and I started behind the counter on the floor, so I had a really good relationship with the community itself, you know. And this one wild hippie-ish kid that was a patient of ours that would come in, super, you know, he wasn't a big spender. He'd spend $10-15, but he always had a bright smile. And definitely looked like, I mean, you know, he looked like you know, somebody that people would be worried about talking to or whatever, you know? He was a little wild, but you could see the sparkle in his eye and how happy he was. And one day he's got this book in his hand, and he said, this book's called The Surrender Experiment. Somebody gave me this, and now I'm going to give it to you because I read it and it's changed my life. And I think that you will really benefit from it.
That's huge.
And I said, I read it like the next night because I know when a gift falls in my lap.
It's not quite like chance, you know. There's something pushing that.
Exactly, you know. And it was almost like it was a meaningful gift of like, here, you need to have this,
right? And
you need to experience it, type of thing. So I love giving books out like that, and I love mentioning or doing things. And I knew in that moment that, wow, this is
special.
This is God-given, bro. There's no reason for anybody to do this type of stuff. We have to pay attention to those moments, you know?
Totally.
You can't wait for the boat. The raft is here. Yep. It's right in front of you.
Hop on in.
That's it. It's kind of how you came to making your decision is the same type of thing, you know?
Right.
So
something doesn't feel right.
Did you hand the book off to someone else after you?
I did, of course. Yeah, I did. And I actually seen it yesterday at the bookstore at Barnes & Noble. That's why it's fresh in my mind.
I love it.
I saw it sitting there, and it made me think. I was charging my car, and I wanted to get a coffee, and I was looking at the books, and I saw it sitting there, and so it's fresh in my mind right now of like how great it is. You know, it's cool because a lot of people don't give. A lot of people don't think, you know, that they don't take note of the fact that there is this negative person in our mind that's constantly controlling us or leading us towards certain things.
Yeah, you become you start to like think that's you, like it is you, and it's like, not to get too depth, but it's like we are so much more than this meat suit.
Exactly.
It is just it's a vehicle. We get to this experience, but like what's so interesting is like your body's changed, your height's changed, lose your hair, all these things are changing as you go through this, but like you always have that internal voice, and it's like, who's that then? And we get so put on like our external world, and then like we start thinking like in this moment, what I'm thinking right now, that's me. And it's like, okay, am I actually creating these thoughts like consciously, or is there something else that's just popping up? And then what happens if I turn it off? Then who am I? Like, if I'm not thinking,
that's scary.
What's going on? It can be very scary, but what I found from the experience is like it's the most peaceful thing in the world. It's like, oh my God, I'm way more than this. I don't know what that is. I don't operate there a lot, but it's a very freeing, expansive way to live, and I try to get those moments a lot more.
Yeah, plus social media and everything's taught you to only look at, oh, what I'm not doing is not great enough.
Yeah.
Or I'm not at the level I should be, or I'm missing out because I'm not at this party.
Right.
Well, before social media, we did whatever the hell we felt like. You picked up the phone, and when your phone would just text and call, hey, be here at this time, whatever. And
right.
It was what it was, but now everybody has FOMO.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Or the opposite.
Or the opposite.
Or the fear of going out.
Yeah.
Because they know it's there. It's
right.
interesting, once again, it's a slippery slope these days because everything goes either way.
Yep.
What's 6 month, 1 year, 5 year goal for the program and where you see this?
Yeah, I think we're concentrating almost 100% effort on this program and just learning like how to optimize it. Yeah, that's why we see it as an experiment. I really hope and anticipate that it can kind of do a few things. The next program in 2024, I hope that we can definitely run it and amp up the numbers and touch more lives with it. Big thing that we want to accomplish is how do we get this digitally in some format. Maybe it might be a hybrid.
I feel like people need to suck it up though after experiencing it.
Totally.
This is not something you can do digitally.
Yep.
And it goes back to my audiobook thing. I like them, but then I get distracted doing other shit. And if I pull out my phone, I feel guilty in that thing.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like, so I understand you guys want to do it, but I think it means way more.
100%
and it'll
agree.
go a lot farther. So people just need to, hey, if they're out of town, they need to make that commitment once a month to fly in for Friday, Saturday, and head out.
Exactly. So there's a lot of different angles that this can go, and this is a big thing this year for me is just focus on where I'm at, not like where I want to be. And not that I don't have goals and milestones and KPIs and all kind of the life businessy stuff, but like I'm just wide awake. Like I want to be wide awake for these next 6 months and just like serve these people.
This is almost
get
like your
feedback.
experiment.
Yeah, it's the experiment. Because it's really the first time outside of like one-on-one stuff that we do sometimes where it's like you're actually building over time. We do a lot of these like kind of pop-ups and like the introduction, and then you have like wow, and then you leave and it's like, okay, when can I come back? It's like we're still figuring that out, how to package this in the right appropriate way. Full transparency.
Yeah.
You guys are going to outgrow that space very quickly.
I think so.
Or you're just going to have to run it like twice a week or something.
Yeah. So that's like a whole nother thing is like how can we operationalize this to a certain extent? And right now there's one gym, and I'm happy that that's the case, and we'll figure out how to widen the audience at the appropriate time.
How does he feel about scaling the program since he's been working one-on-one for so long?
I think he got to a certain point where it's like I've had a lot of conversations with him because it's like one-on-one is like magic because it's all you. There's zero distraction. I'm sitting down with you. I am serving with you what is going on in your life. And when you put 30, 40 people in a room, it's a different thing. I think he's excited as ever. He is. I was telling you 3 days a week just for the first workshop, rehearsing with Henry 12 hours. Both of them are just like literally for the next 6 months. Henry's my age, 28 years old, is saying no to any weekends. He's with Jim in that place rehearsing. Doesn't go out. He's like, this is,
that's dedication.
It's values. This is the most important thing
to him.
Exactly. And we have a shot, and we're trying to accelerate that in the most appropriate way. And it takes time and hard work no matter what you do in any industry or so shout out to them.
That's definitely
easy.
They're dying on the stake. They're like we're gonna give all of this, and it can be kind of fearful in a way
100%.
where it's like, oh my god, I'm putting it all into it. What if it doesn't work?
Yeah.
I think that's why some people kind of sandbag a little things. They'll say I'm doing everything, but it's fearful in the beginning to look in the mirror. It's like I am all in on this.
Yeah.
I am vulnerable, and if it doesn't work, I'm like, am I not good enough? And then on the other side of that, it's kind of freeing. And I think I am a true believer that if you are able to actually tap into that, the universe will start putting things in front of you and unfolding back to like a surrender experiment.
Exactly.
We're both on that page.
Yeah.
You have to jump, bro. No safety net type of deal. That's where the magic happens.
You dropped your dream at the time of football.
Totally. I mean,
you were basically about to be on a full ride, could have went pro, and you said, this isn't for me, I'm out of here.
Yeah, and then even when we were kind of starting still life, I was doing a lot of stuff with like family and had some pretty cool.
How did they respond to the change?
They are the most supporting, loving people in the world. I am so lucky and blessed. But I think my dad, when I worked in baking, I always wanted to go back and work with him, primarily in real estate, some alternative stuff, and so I did and continue to do that on the side, but I think he looked at me like I was a little bit crazy. Like,
yeah,
I took all my savings, the money that he set up for me.
Does he understand?
And I liquidated everything. I put it all in that facility on Venice. I like every penny. I'm $60K in credit card debt.
Yeah,
like I am
you're
just all in. And
yeah,
I was
bro.
like, there's nothing
there's nothing stopping you.
There's nothing that like any additional dollar. It's like right in the pot.
Does he? I mean, our parents' generation aren't. They don't understand the risk reward the same way that we put ourselves out there today. I feel like, you know. But does he understand the motivation behind
Totally.
it?
I remember when I first kind of told him, we were looking at a place in Topanga before the Abbot Kinney location in Venice, and he was just like kind of like questioning, like, is like, what are you really doing? Like, are you okay? Like, he was pretty concerned. And I was like, Dad, just can you please fly out? We'll do a session just like us. And we did that same exercise, and he just was in tears, gave me a hug and said, chase this fucking thing with you. I wish I had something like this in my life. Wow. And so that was a big kind of turning point, and they've been so supportive since then.
Yeah.
Can't beat that.
Yeah, and they've always preached. My grandpa too was like, I remember being like 7 years old. It's like, what do you want to do in life? And I was like, I don't know, I want to be a ninja or a football player or something. He's like, great, you can be a garbage man. Just do what you love.
That's the real positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
And that's the path, right?
Yeah, and
once we find our path, I feel like our life,
everything clicks
for the first time in our life, and it
could
be 5, it could be 50. You know, unfortunately, we're all experiencing a separate experience. You know.
Yeah.
But that moment that you're like, okay, I think I'm headed in the right direction.
Right.
I'm not gonna say that I won't pivot at some point.
Totally.
We all do, and that's the part of life.
Part of it.
But that finding that path is like that's the fulfillment. It's not about the goal of money or anything. It's like I want to find that excitement to wake up every morning and get to it. You know what I mean?
Totally. And
yeah.
I've gotten hung up a lot on, especially when we're like really getting going, but even like a year or 2 years ago, where it's like, man, like maybe I should just go stack a ton of bread and do this on the side. But then you kind of look back and it's like, I know I don't want to waste the time now. It's like, okay, the trade-off of still life, I don't think will ever be this multi-million-dollar enterprise, but I'm not doing it for that. But
I think
it's
you'd be
easy.
Surprised.
Yeah, it's easy to get hung up. It's like,
Yes.
I can do this, then I can turn around and give back. And I was like, well, what if I just give back now?
So many avenues for you as well in other places. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You're bringing a multitude of different walks of life together to grow in a space. And that's an incubator for great things, right?
Oh, this is going to leapfrog into so many more things.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
But I'm not doing your ice plunges.
I've been. I'm actually open to that because I've been wanting to try.
You're doing it once a week, or?
So if you're part of the program, we got a couple. Shout out to Cold Plunge. They gave us some awesome ice baths in our parking lot. So if you're part of the program, you can just show up and use it. But we'll do more like kind of curated ones that are like kind of led. Do some breath work before you hop in. And
how cold are you gonna keep them?
I think they're like 36. It's cold.
It's cold.
But it's just like, it shows you like that narration. It's like, turn it off.
There's other stuff.
And you can show how powerful a little pre-breath work will do when you're in there. You start doing some circular breathing.
I've been doing the hot to cold shower thing recently.
Yeah.
Within the last week, so it's fresh in my mind. And that transition is like, it's literally breathtaking.
Yeah.
Because I get short of breath immediately.
Totally.
To where you're like, oh shit, something is happening here, because I went from to exactly.
Get me out.
And then the initial subsides and it's like, okay, this is okay.
Right.
It is a roller coaster of emotion, though, and that's not a plunge. That's just a transition. You know what I mean? Between 100%. Hot and cold water. So that's very interesting. I was wondering if there's anything, that you could walk us through that is like a part of the program here to kind of, I don't know, for the viewers to see anything, almost like, firsthand.
Like an appetizer. Something that we could make a clip for or something.
Yeah. More on kind of the mindset stuff, or like values is my favorite presentation that we're going to be doing.
Whatever you would want to represent the program to somebody new to introduce it to them.
Got it. So I'll do values. I'll start there and we can cut it or whatever, but it's something that I use every single day and it's super hard. So values, in the way that we just kind of describe it, is anything that you put your money, time, attention, resources to go get. Values is kind of everywhere in our lives. We think about what we value, what America values, what our community values. But the really interesting thing that we talk a lot about is those are your conscious values, but primarily your true values are subconscious. So there's kind of this difference between the two. And if you look, values drive your behavior. So if you look at your real actual behavior, you can forensically trace back what your true values may be. Typically, they're at a meta level, they're in order of a hierarchy. So the second workshop we do, it's all about values, and we bring them up. And the big thing that we do is we get stilled before, because there can't be any right or wrong. We are under too many biases to look at what our actual values might be. But when you actually start putting your true values in order of a hierarchy, one, you'll probably be super surprised like I was. It's like, holy cow, this is actually what's driving my behavior. It makes sense. And then you can start to be like, okay, well, where do I want to be in 30 days? Here's kind of my ideal value set. And then you can start actually tracing your behavior daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and try to reorder these things. But what I love about it is once you become clear on what your actual values are, the changes that you might need to make to get to your ideal value hierarchy, is you use it as a decision-making tool. So every day we're constantly making decisions, but big decisions, business decisions, relationship decisions, personal life decisions, is to really kind of create the most amount of distance as you can, and your decision-making process becomes way simpler. It's like, if I actually value this, the easy one that I use in school is like studying. I wanted to be a great student, but I loved my social life. Going out, it's like there's conflict. Like, okay, well, I can do both things and everything. It's like, okay, well, like, let's bring up your values. If I say I want to do this, and this is really important to me and I want to value it, social is still really important, but it's number 3. You can look at this and be like, okay, I got a big test coming up. I got a party at my fraternity tonight. And you just look at it and you're like, okay, I'm not going out. I'm not going out. Like, if I actually say I'm going to value this, and that's why Henry primarily, Jim's older, right? No kids. That's why Henry's literally killing himself, dedicating all the time, sitting and rehearsing.
Values.
He's like, still life's the most important thing to me. You know, like we had one of our best friends' bachelor party in Miami. Like what 28-year-old wouldn't want to go to do that in a couple months?
Exactly.
I can't do it. I can't do it. I love you, but I'm not doing it. This is my number 1 value.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's a 4 or 5 hour workshop, but like that's, I don't know, that to me is just, it's the most eye-opening thing.
We don't
think very often,
no.
Especially when it's your subconscious. Like, I think I told you maybe first time I was doing this, I was like, family's a top one for me, for sure. Like, wasn't even really in my top 10.
Really?
And I talk to them every day, 3 sisters, mom and dad, I love them to death. And like, I never thought like really kind of like status would be one. It was like number 2. I was like, oh my God, this is what's driving my behavior. Okay, like, all right. Like, and then It's not good or bad. And then you can start having deeper conversations about behavior and what do you want out of life.
So what is your new 1, 2, 3?
I'm about to discover that next month.
Okay.
When we get into the values, I bring it up, but quite frankly, it's pretty deep stuff, and I haven't really been doing it a long time. And quite frankly, I need the help of the community in the room to put me in these deep states where you can look at it with no biases.
Yeah. Do you feel collectively it's with the community, it's easier to get real work done, like deep work.
Absolutely.
Than in a one-on-one space.
Because you have these people, I mean, like sometimes like these big-time CEOs or just a yoga teacher, and they're sharing their life story. They're sharing what's going on in their life, and it gives you the confidence. It's like everyone in this room is completely different. It's about 50% guys, 50% girls. Again, pretty wide-ranging age range and economic status. And you just are like, wow, we're all going through the same shit.
Wow.
Like, we're all going through our same unique stuff. I'm not alone. I'm not isolated.
We all have our own struggles, and you're not alone.
Yeah, I don't have to put this facade on. Like, we have like values of the space, and one of the top ones is leave your story at the door. Like, be a human. Just be raw.
Imagine if everybody operated like. Imagine what tomorrow would be like if. Yeah. Everybody got up and operated from that space. Right?
Dude, imagine just something as simple as going to a concert or a venue with no one pulling out their phone and focusing on recording it for a later memory, and just being present in that moment to enjoy it.
Being present in line, being respectful of others, things that used to be like common nature to us that have, spiraled out of control now, and we don't really, it's easy to have this ego-driven fuck you type of. Yeah. It's almost rewarded at this point, Yeah. So it is very interesting to leave. It is rewarded 100%. It's interesting to leave that at the door and to do this deep work.
Right. I will actually share one quick one. It might be helpful for you guys, the audience. And this is why I'm not actually straight on the order of the hierarchy, but one that came up was freedom, personal freedom. Mm-hmm. And you start to and you do this kind of live, you start to as a group, but also individually, Jim will lead it all. You start to kind of define, what does that mean to you uniquely?
That's actually going to be my question, because freedom.
Yeah, to me, it's mean so broad, right? And we always start at the meta level, then we can subset it and get more micro. But it was like freedom to go do kind of what I want. Like, that's what I want in my life. Like, I want that, maybe that FU money, and if I want to pop to a vacation, I want to go do that. If I want to have fun, I can go do that. And then you're like, okay, what's actually underneath that? And you're like, actually, what I want my freedom to mean to me is the freedom not to do that, because I think that's what the external world values. I'm under the understanding that to be successful and to be fulfilled, I need to have certain things in my life that create this kind of freedom. And then you ask the deeper questions is how is my software operating like that? What does that actually mean? Short-term pleasures, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone goes through short dopamine rushes, mm-hmm. Nicotine, porn, everything. Hookup culture. All these things are I could freedom to do these things. So I'll do it what I want. And then you're wow, do I actually have freedom in making these choices?
Yeah. Who's at the helm, right?
Right. Who's at the helm?
Who's really making that decision?
Who's really making that decision? Do I actually have free will in a lot of the things I do on day to day?
Wow.
So I just wanted to share that one thing, because that's been really top of mind.
No, it's really
this
deep.
Year is
that's because I don't know that we know who's operating, and then a lot of what we think is driving us, like you said, in our list of values, and then you get into this deep space and you start to really see, and you see these behaviors. I mean, as you started to get into values, obviously my mind went to well, this could revolutionize addiction and
totally.
Behavioral patterns and things, and not just substance addiction, but
technology.
Action addiction, technology addiction, all of these things, because like you said, we're just a rat here trying to get that instant dopamine.
Right.
It could be shopping, it could be this, it could be any type of action.
Totally.
But what is leading, and who is really doing this?
Right.
Because it's never enough.
Never really enough.
No,
everything feels good in the moment, but it's 10 years go by. I'm
a lot of regret comes with that instant reward too.
Right.
And it's never as sweet. The grass is always greener. Every time I hit another level of something that I think was supposed to be
something,
this reward is I don't wear the watches. I don't wear the jewelry. I don't all of these accomplishments, the trophies, the things that these things do, and then I find myself in the same t-shirt and jeans.
I love it.
Over again, and I'm like, okay, so what's next, right?
Right.
Where do we get to? It's interesting. the guy Tom Shadyac, the guy that directed most of Jim Carrey's huge films. He made a great documentary. He had a traumatic brain injury and went through these things. But there's this thing that he said that he had reached like the height of his career path that he could ever attain, right? He moved from a mansion in Los Feliz to a multiple property in Pasadena, like a sprawling $40 million estate. And he said, here I am, won every award possible with more accolade and financial gain than ever. And I'm sitting in my 40-foot entryway on my main house that has 2 other houses. Right. And he said, and I look up and never have I felt more empty. Yeah. And alone, right? Totally. So here I am, the ultimate at this life path that everybody told me that, you know, you did everything that you could possibly do. Right. You achieved the highest goal. And here you are feeling emptier than ever, right?
Yeah, you try to create connection by actually separating yourself and creating yourself as a special status. I'm above, you're here. And you're actually, like, most people who do that are like, hey, I just want to be loved. Like, I just want a friend. Like, I want you to, like me. Or just but I'm going to create separation.
Back to where Jim starts, right?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Who are you? What do you love?
That's it. Yeah. Those are 2 questions to operate from.
And people acknowledging the little things in life.
Yeah.
Where can people find you guys and the program, and you want to talk a little bit about, like, you know, how to get involved and where that is?
Yeah, social media right now, we're primarily only on Instagram. It's called @still.life. Great page on there. Website still.life. We're located in Venice, California, on Abbot Kinney.
Can people walk in?
No, we're not like a typical yoga or gym membership yet. We're trying to figure that out.
Reach out to you guys on IG.
Reach out on Instagram.
Or the website.
Sure. I'll give you guys my email. It's satkins@still.life.
I'll put it down below for you guys.
Yeah, and then our app, I used it before walking in here. It's Still Life Still Life. I think it's just Still Life on the App Store.
Okay, cool.
I'll link it.
I'll link it. Yeah.
I'll download
we
that now.
just relaunched it last week, and we've changed the name of it. But it's Still Life. I think it's Practice Stillness.
And is it like a meditation guide type of like vibe?
Yeah, it's basically we try to get rid of like that Netflix effect. I think the feedback that I get with Jim, he's worked at Disney's, he's just a creative genius. It's really like unlike any like just guided meditation or just like sounds. We use music, there's like wordplay. It's really fun, and the way that we set it up is kind of like a 4-piece semi-prescriptive flow where we start with getting still. The next kind of category is reflections, which are like 5 to 10 minute, really deep, like makes you think. We talk about values, relationships, patterns, and habits that just kind of introduce these things to you. The third one is breath, and the fourth one is deepening techniques. So still all aiming at stillness, but in different ways. You use like different relaxing, different muscular, sweeping your eyes, like pretty potent audios. And then what you can start to learn and do is you can start to stack these things and kind of make your own practice out of it, just depending on the duration and what sings to you.
Awesome. Were you nervous before we started a little bit?
A little bit. I don't do like much public things.
Yeah, but it's tough. A lot of people are, you know, even people that are very.
I mean, look at the setup here. Right? Yeah. It's like the real deal.
Yeah, you get the lights in the face. It's a show. You know? It's kind of second nature to me because I've been.
You've been around it for so long.
On camera for so long. Yeah. But I find that even our well-spoken guests who come in and really nail it like you've done today, so just so you know, you speak well in front of a camera. I get it.
It's the space that you guys created and the relationships that we've been able to build. Like, thank you guys so much.
No, my pleasure.
This is amazing.
Appreciate you coming out today.
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'll download the app, and you know, for all the viewers out there, it sounded like a really good way to get you know, involved with the app. Is a great way to start. Anybody can do it anywhere.
Totally.
First step.
Totally.
Yeah.
And please reach out to us on Instagram. Myself, like, we'd love to hear from you. I will just about take any call. Like, we're just here to help.
That's and I'm giving out your number, but I'll give out your
cell phone. I'm bad enough on keeping up with that, but
I'm in, bro. I want to be a part of this this movement and come experience this. And, you know, learn how to operate from that great space that I know I can be in sometimes.
Done.
Thanks. Right. Like and subscribe.
Thank you.
See you guys on the next one.